All right. I believe we are live now.
We
How
are
are you?
live. I'm good, man. Good. Been soaking up the sun. Rio de Janeiro, as you know. So yeah, life is really good.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
uh, and you've got your "Hello Beautiful" sign in the background, which is always a lovely compliment to be on the receiving end of.
It's yes, it's just for you. I got it specifically for you. No,
I
but
love it.
that's awesome. I'm sure it's the weather is beautiful down there. I live outside Philadelphia, and so for
Hmm.
us, it's like 20 degrees and just freezing right
Yeah,
now. So not
yeah,
not beautiful, but still enjoyable.
yeah. We've got this. We got pure sunshine now. So I'm living right in front of Copacabana Beach. Uh, Pure sunshine all throughout the day. Work out on the beach, sunsets. It's pretty idyllic if you can figure out a way to balance your life well
Absolutely. So Sam,
here.
this is awesome. I know
Hmm.
we talked a little bit before, and I figured
Hmm.
that we might as well get together. I want to learn more about what you do and how you do it. So, if you wouldn't mind, just giving like a brief introduction to everybody for anybody who
Sure.
might not know who you are. Who is who
Yeah,
is
yeah,
who is Fluid Social?
yeah. So Fluid Social is a company that I started about 6 years ago. Um, Basically with the intention of, instead of just thinking about the problem as like, how do I help guys get laid, which is what I see a lot in this sort of space in this industry. It's like it's a very kind of surface level focus. It's like, how do we get guys to get laid? I will teach you to get laid. And that's basically it. I started the company with the idea of, why don't we design your ideal version of your perfect social life, right? Meaning, like, what kind of women do you want to spend your time around? What kind of women, if any, ideally do you want to settle down with? What kind of friends do you want? What kind of business network do you want? What kind of things do you do with these people, and how do they make you feel? Right? Because we're not limited by just like, how many women do you want to sleep with each week. Your social life can be whatever you want it to be. And with the clarity of knowing what it is that you actually want and thinking deeply about what kind of life you want, you can actually just make it happen. And so I was working for a couple of years, basically from the age of 19 to 22, with students at university who have autism and Asperger's spectrum disorders. um, Autism spectrum disorders. I was working with them to help them make friends, to help them meet girls, sitting with them in dinners, in lectures, going to public spaces, and literally helping them hands on to meet people. So that was my background. That was my experience. Around the same time, I broke up with um, a long term girlfriend. And I started valuing the ability, understanding the value of the ability to go out and meet women, because I was completely lost, as a man at that age, not having much experience and losing that relationship. So those sort of two things coalesced at the same time. Um, and yeah, that was the birthplace of Fluid Social. So I did that for a couple of years, and then started my own business, helping neurotypical guys, just everyday guys who wanted to change their life the same way that I did for my own life, and the way that I'd learned how to do it. So yeah, and we've gone from strength to strength. So now I'm doing sort of online courses, and we're really thinking deeply about what it is that a client wants. I'm working over periods of 6 weeks at a time. So 6 week courses. So that's my background, man. And now I'm going to have to ask you for the same thing for any of my audience that aren't already acquainted. Why don't you tell my guys a little bit about you now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So dating for me, growing up, I was very much a nerd sitting inside playing video games. And
Mm,
there was a switch that happened around junior year in high school where I was like, why can't I get the girls? Why am I just stuck inside where everybody else seems to be having such a great time? And then I just started really working hard on understanding that, improving myself, improving the way that I look, the way that I act, uh, putting myself out there, which I think
mm,
is one of the most important things that a lot of guys struggle with because it's intimidating. But then over the years, I just I kept honing that skill. I got into a pretty difficult relationship a few years ago that completely uprooted my life. It landed me with a lot of bills and a lot of frustration, and she just up and left, and it really sent me down a dark spiral where I had to look inward at myself and be like, all right, like I thought I had this figured out. What was I actually doing wrong? And then through my journey back to where I am today, I just learned not just so much about myself, but so much of the things that people struggle with. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to share that then back to the world. And so essentially what I'm doing, and I have a lot of either monthly clients or people that come into a program and do a similar 6-week type of thing as you, where we try and identify those things and fix them for everybody. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing with this book release and what I plan for 2022 and onwards until everything is completed is essentially creating a catalog, A to Z, of everything when it comes to dating. So whether that be dating apps, cold approach, night game, long-term relationships, all these types of things. We're going to go through every single segment of it so that I give the information that you're equipped to do anything when it comes to dating. So if you need to reference, all right, like I'm so good at everything, but like, why do I keep falling flat in this area? You have an immediate reference guide.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just,
Okay.
I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing the transformation of the guys that I'm working with, and I'm excited to see what's going to come.
Awesome, man. And so, how long have you actually been coaching? How long have you been working with the guys?
Absolutely, yeah. So I started back in the beginning of 2020, so it hasn't been too long. Like I've been doing stuff
Mm.
since my college days. There's a couple guys like this is obviously unpaid. This is just like helping out your friends with certain things,
Mm.
and that's where I kind of got a knack for it. And then once I actually took it seriously and started working with people, I realized like, okay, yeah, I actually do know what I'm talking about, and I am
Mm-hmm.
helping people. So it's been since I started my own business here since the beginning of 2020.
Okay, cool. It's cool, man. So we've got slightly different areas in which we work, right? You are slightly more in the online dating sphere than I am, and I'm more sort of still focused on the cold approach, the going out there. So what drew you to that area? Let's say, like, why were you more drawn to the sort of technology focused area?
For sure. So first and foremost, I do come from a tech background, so
Hmm.
that's part of it. But the main part was I was seeing how frustrated people were getting in lockdown. When they
Mm.
initially started this lockdown and everybody is stuck inside, what do? You can't go to the local pub and go ahead and meet somebody that way. Like you're literally strapped inside, and if you are out and about, you have to wear a mask. So what do you do about that? And the more I started diving into it and thinking about it, it's like, well, if you can master online dating, then the world is your oyster. And
Mm.
now in that process as well, I ran an experiment and I created a fake profile of a girl down in Texas. And
Hmm.
when I created that profile and I just did one quick loop of my swipes, woke up the next day to I think it was like 1,500 or so matches or people that liked you, and it was like, oh
Mm.
my god, like why is this not the same for guys? And so then I started working more on figuring out how to build the perfect profiles, how to make it successful for the guys, and it became easy. Like one thing that I say in the book that I think it really is true. If you have a good profile and you know what you're doing, you can do your matches in 10 minutes on the shitter every day, and that's it. You're done. There's no reason to spend countless hours. There's no reason to pay for these Tinder Premium or Golds or any of these extra features.
Hmm.
And for somebody who's like on a mission, growing a business, doing a lot of different things, time is money. So if I can save time, I'm going to do it. So instead of like having to get ready for a date, spend like half an hour getting ready for a date, driving to the date, doing the date, then having to bring her back, well, what if you could just have it all right in the palm of your hand? There's not a lot of pressure and it just expedites the process. And I think that is the most important thing about it.
Okay, cool. So, what would you say is like where most guys are going wrong? Like, what's the first place you start when you're maybe working with a client and they're not getting matches or it's just not going well for them? What's the biggest problem that guys face with this?
Biggest one by far is definitely pictures. I do not think that you necessarily need to get a professional photo shoot, although they can be very nice, but it's not
Mm,
necessary. Um, the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of photos that you can get even just while being out. Like there's a photo that I've used on my profile for years. I've officially retired it, but it's a photo that I walked up to a girl with her boyfriend and said, "Hey,
hmm.
take a photo of me like this." And she did, and it was a great photo. It did very well, and it's as simple as that. So there's
Hmm.
no reason to put so much pressure on yourself, but understand that with a dating profile, it's all visual. It's like looking at a resume. It's the
Yeah.
same thing that when I coach guys on when I coach guys on because I do work with some people on getting a new career, a new job, things like that. When we look at the resumes, you have to think about your audience. Who is your audience? Your audience is probably a younger girl in her 20s, and
Hmm.
she doesn't know what like SAP or SQL or like any of this other stuff is, and she doesn't care, but she cares how quick and easy it is to read the resume and if there's buzzwords there that are catching her attention. So think about the same way from the dating app. If you're looking at a picture resume, essentially, how do you represent yourself in the best light?
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? So okay, so fair enough. So you get great photos of you looking sharp, dressed well, doing interesting things, clear HD shots, kind of demonstrate a lot of your qualities as a man, right? But we've
Mm-hmm.
all had that experience as at least as a dude, where you see that profile on a girl where she's representing herself in a very good light, and then when that exceptional light is toned down, or you actually end up meeting up with her, it's a very different story. Um, and not only do you feel sort of a little let down that the proof of the pudding wasn't as tasty as maybe you had hoped, but also that you feel a bit annoyed that she actually sort of catfished in a way, right? I mean, obviously, there's varying degrees of that. Sometimes, she just had good pictures and she wasn't quite as pretty, but at other times, you're certain it's a different girl. Like maybe she's put on 4 or 5 kilograms and it's just a very different outlook. So, what do you think about where's that balance of making guys look great, but like let's say not misrepresenting them? Do you focus on that? Is that important to you, or how do you level that across that too?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's a really interesting question because I find that a lot of times it's more on the girl side that they'll misrepresent themselves than the guy.
Hmm.
Um, I think that it's very important to be uniquely yourself. So don't do like it's okay to use face app for a little bit. Whiten your teeth maybe a little bit,
Yeah,
do some things like that. But if you're changing how you look, and if you look like a magazine cover and everything, and you don't look like that in person, you're just
yeah,
shooting yourself in the foot. So if you're not representing yourself as who you actually are, then you're going to consistently fail. And now I had actually put a reel about this on my Instagram, I think like last week, talking about that. Because if you're deceiving the other person, then every first date's going to be a flop. That's also one of the reasons why to help guys not get catfished. And conversely, both ways around, I always say have at least a 15-minute FaceTime call before you actually meet up with them. Because that way you're able to tell, okay, are they actually who I think they are? Do they look that way? And can I actually get along with them? Because you may
that's a
not
really
know,
good idea.
even if they look the part, you may get on that date and you'll be like, oh my God, I have nothing in common with this person. And
That's a
this is
really good idea.
a quick and easy way to cut through the BS.
Let me explain why I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea because not only are you sort of serving yourself to the extent that you want to know what she actually looks like, what she's actually like, right? Which you can't tell over text. It's never a fair representation, the messaging process of what a person's actually like. But not only that, but you're also demonstrating a level of self value by saying, I'm not prepared to just show up and meet with anyone. like I would actually like to verify that you're cool. And on top of that, it's kind of attractive for her because she probably doesn't get that very often. She gets guys that are just thirsty, who are just looking for the date at all costs. And to meet one who's actually happy to sort of put himself out there and say, let's talk before, right? He's thought of something different. He's thinking from first principles, right? Like, I want to know whether I like this girl or not. So I'm going to solve that problem by jumping on a call before we meet up, you know? So it displays all of the kind of, I suppose, mini value determinants of like whether this guy is worth her time and also whether she's worth his time. So that's a really good idea, and it's a good way around the sort of, you know, cliched model, I suppose, that comes from the first dates on Tinder. Right, you get all of the nonsense out of the way at the start.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it shows that air of confidence, and it weeds people out very quickly. And I think that that's one of the most important things you need to do with the dating apps is weeding people out, because you have a lot of people that are there just for validation, and they're just time wasters. They just want to hear that they look pretty, and they don't really care about meeting up.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. So I want to try and get inside the mind of a lot of the guys that watch my channel who are maybe a little concerned with something like, because, you know, I talk a lot on my channel about the benefits of cold approach versus like meeting girls on Instagram, for example. The primary one being that, like, if you're not the best looking guy, right, and you haven't had those early life experiences of women validating you, right? Like we all know guys in school who just got all the girls, right? The guys that got all the girls in school, they were validated from such an early age that they're handsome, that they're cool, that they're worthy of women, that they grow up to just believe that, continue to believe that, and life generally is pretty good to them. The guys that didn't have that early life sort of validation tend to fall into a pattern of believing that they're not like really worthy of women, and so when they go on let's say dating apps, they don't have that experience of women being attracted to them on dating apps, and so they look to cold approach, let's say, to install a different set of beliefs about themselves by
Hmm.
going out and creating the environment for a new type of validation, right? I'm going to go and talk to people and get better at that so that I can see that I'm not actually unworthy, right? Some women actually like me, and even if they don't, I don't have to worry about that. Like, I'm starting to learn that I'm not the way people perceive me. I am something completely different to what I thought I was and to what they think I am. I am just whatever turns up in the moment, right? Whatever manifests itself in the world in the moment. And so there's that sort of process. Um, what would you say to guys who are maybe a little low on the confidence, maybe not the most generically good looking guys who want to make a success of online dating? And what would you say to them? What would your advice be?
Absolutely. Like I think, and that's it's a shame, but that's just how it is. Online dating
Mm-hmm.
is very superficial.
Yeah.
So if you want to succeed in that, you probably should get somebody to help you with your fashion. And it's not
Mm.
difficult to do. Like personally, like I don't know if you're familiar with Kohl's.
With what?
Kohl's.
What is it?
Okay. It's like a bargain store here in the US. And so it's very, very cheap to buy clothes there.
Mm.
Um, but it's not like designer. It's not nice, like in that sense. But there are some very well fitting clothing that you can get there. And quite
Cool.
honestly, a lot of my clothes, like a lot of my jeans, a lot of my tees, things like that, they all come from Kohl's. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to fix your wardrobe. You just need to have
Yeah.
the right eye for it. And that can be difficult for guys if they don't have that eye for it. So either finding somebody who can help you do that, or even finding I know a lot of people in this space are like, oh, don't be friends with girls. I think it's okay to be friends with girls. I think it's a healthy, normal thing. And if you have a girlfriend that you can have come with you and help you pick out some things, it's a great way to get started. Now, past that, if you really don't have the look and you can't represent yourself the right way, then I think alternative methods, like as you said, cold approach, because it's very important to show your personality. And on
Mm-hmm.
dating apps, you can't necessarily show your personality first. You have to show the image first. And that's why it's a lot more superficial.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So, yeah, for those guys, it's essentially like accept the superficiality of it. If you want to leverage your value. If you want to make the best impression, just accept that it's based on the visual component and do whatever you can to make yourself as visually pleasing as you can. And then work on the other areas to level that out as well. If you're going to go on a date, you've got to be able to have some conversation, right? You've got to be able to chat.
I would say on that too, it's very
Yeah.
important. Most of the guys and even a lot of the girls, their photos on dating apps are horrendous. So if you just have good photos, even if you're not a super attractive man, you're going to be good to go. So don't overthink it. It's more about just getting out there.
Yeah. Okay. So just get started. Just on that, finally, on that visual component. So you think it's important that guys, I mean, let's say firstly, set up a profile, get a stylist if you don't have style, or how do you build that profile out? Like, do you want to hire like a photographer? Do you want to hire a stylist and make sure that it's like A1 profile from the start? Or how do you want to deal with that visual component?
Yeah, so typically I would suggest if you're completely lost, hiring somebody like me who does this, and I can build a profile from your photos ground up. And if we're missing certain components, we can identify those
Mm.
and then get them. I think one of the best things you can do is start taking more photos when you're out. Even if it sounds cheesy, corny, whatever, if you're out and doing something cool and interesting, just ask somebody, hey, take a photo of me doing this or take a photo of us. Like get those photos because then you can use them in your profiles. A lot of times
Mm.
guys don't have these photos and they'll go out like drinking with their friends or whatnot and they'll never take photos. And it's just such a simple thing to do and it's not awkward. Like think about how many times that you're out and about and somebody asks you, hey, can you take a photo of us? It's not weird. So build up that gallery. And then if you really want to be professional with it, you can find somebody who does the professional photo shoots. Now, you got to weigh the cost of that because personally, I got a photo shoot done for $100, which is a screaming deal. But I had somebody who got one done for 2,000 recently. So there's a lot of varying in price and you want to make sure you know what you're looking for so that you can get a specific quote on that from that person and understand if that value is worth it. And always ask for their portfolio so you can see things that they've done in the past to make sure that that is what you're looking for.
Cool. Do you have any photographers? Like, so for example, if someone comes to you, can you set them up with a photographer in your local area? Like, do you manage that as well? Or is it more like, you know, sort of just find your own?
So because I have people all over the world, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not always the easiest, but locally within Philly, yes, I do have somebody I can set them up with.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Okay, so my next question on this is, what kind of guy would you not recommend focus on online dating as his first priority? Right. So I imagine that, and I asked this question this way round because I think it's a better angle to come from. But I just want to see, you know, what kind of guy would you not recommend to focus on this as his first priority? And then we can look at the other side of that.
Okay, it's a fair question, and it's a really good one too. So I would say that the person, and it's the same thing that I would recommend anybody who's trying to get dating advice. If you haven't done the self work first, and if you know yourself and know what you want, then don't waste your time doing this. Because I've seen so many people spin their wheels on it without actually having the inner confidence in themselves first. So like you can create the best profile in the world, you can get all these matches, but then if you don't know how to even talk to a girl in person, it's you're going towards a dead end. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's important that you're at that place where you know you're confident because it's like when all these pieces come together, it's just like all these wheels. Like I'm just imagining like a factory right now of all these different wheels and pulleys going together. And it's like once you have all the pieces in place, it is so easy. Match, FaceTime, chat a little bit, date, and then get laid or a relationship from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you
Yeah.
need to have all the pieces in order for this to flow smoothly. And that's kind
Okay.
of why, like with this first book here, I'm focusing strictly on openers and like the first text, because there's the first text, there's the conversation, there's the FaceTime, there's the actual first date. So there are steps, but let's break it down into digestible pieces before we kind of dive fully into it. So I would say that there really is nobody that shouldn't try online dating, but realize that if you push to online dating instead of cold approach, well, why did cold approach not work for you? Oh, well, I can't talk to the girl, I get nervous. Well, online dating is not going to be any better. It's the same thing.
Mm.
You need all
Yeah.
pieces of the process. It's just in a different format.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I don't do online dating personally. Like, I just personally don't have any of the profiles. And the reason for me is that I'm someone who has to create environments that do not have temptations in them, or I will, I'm an addict. I've got an addictive personality. And so I have to be really careful about curating environments where I'm not going to have the addictive things, right? Like, if I live in a chocolate shop, I'm not going to be in good shape. If I, if I live next to a brothel, I mean, my relationships are going to fall apart. I'm one of those people that I need my environment to be conducive to the kind of life that I want. And for me, personally, the online dating profile is too much of a dopamine thing. It's like, I'll go on there and start swiping, and then I've swiped a bit, and now I'm like in my room and I'm in this voyeuristic headspace where I'm like looking at pictures of like half naked women, and then the next thing is like Instagram, and then it's almost like for me, like a gateway drug to porn. And porn for me is just, it's just a really, really dangerous thing for a lot of guys. Like, it can make you feel so bad. And I think Tinder, particularly something like Tinder, the way it's set up, it has a tendency to make you hate yourself, because you're constantly looking at women that very rarely are talking to you. Most of them are fake, and I don't know, it's sort of missing some sort of wholesome sense of a moment in time where you stumbled across this woman in this place. And so for me, I guess I have this kind of old-fashioned romantic thought about the kind of life giving you this opportunity in some random place. So what I say to guys is not that online dating is a problem, full stop, but that they should be using online dating at minimum alongside doing cold approach. And if they're not going out and meeting women in real life, those are the guys that I don't recommend online dating to, because I think they would be better off feeling the pain of celibacy, of having nothing, than taking the easy option and just going, swiping and going on dates. Like, if you can't meet a woman out there in the real world, you need to feel the pain of not having it and figure that out, and then use online dating as a sort of side hustle, or as a way to keep things moving. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a lot with that. Yeah, you're right. It is. It's a good supplement. However, I
Yeah.
think that if guys are stuck inside, and when you're saying that like forced celibacy, well, then they're just going to turn to porn anyways. You know. So I think I'm just trying to think of like everything you're saying on this. It's very true, and it can be addictive. One of the things that I recommend, and I don't like Tinder. I haven't liked Tinder for a long time. I love Hinge though. I think Hinge is fantastic, and
Mm-hmm.
so I recommend Hinge not just because of the success I've seen with it, the success my clients have seen with it, but the way that it's built. So it's built so you can only swipe 7 times a day, and that
Yep.
resets at like 4 a.m. EST. So you do it at work, as I said, on the shitter, less than 10 minutes, you're done. And then you can just put it down and not think about it. And it won't let you keep going forward. The only way to keep going forward on profiles is by swiping left. So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
a control mechanism there. Because I know a lot of guys ask, should I buy like a premium service, something like that? And I say, no, let's start here. Once we have your profile built, once we know what we're going to be doing here, keep it in kind of a constrained way. And
Mm-hmm.
what people tend to find is once everything is set up correctly and they know how to flow these conversations, that they have more matches than they know what to do, like deal with. So then
Right.
they actually have to like think about the women that they want to talk to and want to meet. And I think that that kind of breaks that cycle of the instant dopamine hit of laying in your bed swiping on a lot of girls. Now, if
Mm.
you're going to go to Instagram and look at all that type of stuff, I don't know what to tell you. That just needs to be, self-control type of thing. But yes, it's a supplement to regular game. But I think with the increasingly digital age, um, it's not really a capstone to your game evolution. It's more like a side piece. It's more like you're taking Bio 101 and Chem 101. Like you need to take both of them. You can't just
Okay.
take one and then wait for the other. You need to understand both.
Yeah. So what you're saying is basically like, if you're the guy that talks to women in the day, but then you don't have any social media, she's going to be like, he seemed cool, but he's so far behind. He's so outside of my reality that I can't relate to him. He doesn't even have Instagram. And so you lose the girl. And if you just have a great Instagram profile with 100,000 followers, but then people meet you in real life and you're a complete like coward or weird, unusual, then they're going to be like, okay, he's got the Instagram profile, but it's all to cover up that he's not developed himself. So you're saying that they kind of work together, right? Like the online dating in the real world.
Absolutely.
Um, and would you integrate it with Instagram? Like, it seems like that's the natural sort of progression. It's like you have an online dating profile, you list your Instagram account, or like it's the way that you set up the date would be to check their Instagram account. They're probably going to want to check yours to see what kind of things you do and what kind of circles you move in. Do you think that there's some level of integration between these dating apps and Instagram now?
Oh, absolutely. And I actually touched on this a bit in the book. And just heads up, guys, down below, you'll see a link to the book if you want to purchase it. And if you purchase through Sam here, he gets some commission out of it. So please support us in our work. But yeah, absolutely. I touch on this because I have it connected to my Hinge, and being a dating
Mm-hmm.
coach and having what you would consider a high value profile, where I have a lot of guests coming on, I have a lot of cool things going on. When girls see that, it increases the rate that they're going to respond. And I have a lot of girls that'll point out something on my Instagram completely unrelated to my Hinge
Mm-hmm.
profile, and that's how I know that she was attracted to me enough to go all the way down the profile and then go stalk my Instagram and then point out something in there.
Yeah.
So when you have when you have I guess when you display that lifestyle that you're living, it it improves everything so much. And again, this is a whole nother topic, but with the Instagram, there's good pictures and bad pictures. Don't There's a lot of guys that post like the same photo or post shots of them making food over and over and over again. That's not interesting. People can cook. You can look up images of food. So that's something else that needs to be considered, with either a coach or just looking at some of these larger Instagram profiles of what, and I saw yours as well. It looks very good, looks very clean. So make sure that you have a variety and things that show you looking good and enjoying life.
Cool. Okay. Um, let's have a look at this. Hello, King Cole. I don't know. I'm familiar with this chap and his adventures, various misadventures and adventures, on Tusk's channel. What do you think about this? Do you think that in terms of quality, if a man's looking for quality, all things being equal, do you think he's more likely to find the quality on the online dating if he's got a great profile or in real life? What's your take on this?
This is actually a really interesting question. Thank you for bringing this up. I actually disagree. I don't think that one gives better than the other,
Mm-hmm.
because they both follow different like flows. Okay, so you're gonna find out quality through the cold approach, or not the cold approach, the FaceTime. So you're gonna find the quality through the
Okay.
FaceTime, but that's not gonna happen right away. Whereas the cold approach, like you're also, it's like fishing. You never know what fish you're gonna catch. So when you go out and do cold approach, you never know who you're gonna run into. In the same way, you don't know what type of profiles and what type of people you're going to run into. But it's only until deeper into the conversation that you will find out if they're a quality person or not. So I think we have to think about it in that different way. It's not, these dating apps are not just packed with superficial people. It's the same thing as the people that you're meeting out day to day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's a lot of the same people, right? And a lot of the people that I suppose that you do meet in the day, um, they might even respond on a dating app where they wouldn't in the day. I guess the opposite is true as well. There are some girls, at least in my experience, that would not talk to me on Tinder, but when I meet them in the day, that there's so much value to the fact that I've come up and met her and talked to her out of the blue, and she knows instantly that I'm in the top like 5% of guys just from the way I speak and the fact that I've come over that no one else would. That it's almost just puts you in the higher category, that you would that I would never, at least I would never have gotten with the profile in the profile that I had. So I guess there's two sides, right? You're going to get more rejection. Well, it's kind of hard to think about it like that, I suppose.
But
But I suppose, yeah, you're
what I want to say on that is that you're going to find out if this is a quality person faster with cold approach than you would on the dating app. And I think that's kind of the root of what King Cole's saying here.
okay, yeah. So he said it's just quality is so much. So quality is so much. Yeah. So in his experience, let's say he's found that he just meets more quality women. I think in my experience, I think one thing that I often think is, why would a really beautiful, intelligent, cool girl need to be on Hinge, right? We all know that women get approached fairly regularly, right? They get attention from their colleagues at work. They get attention from guys in the street, in the tube. They've got their high school guys that are still chasing them, guys from university still going. So what would bring, and I know they exist because the girl that I've been seeing most recently is also on Hinge. And just, well, not for the time that we're together, but has also been on Hinge, right? And she said it was partly because it just makes life easier. But I think, why would the top tier of women put themselves on a dating app? Surely they've got options coming out of their ears.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. And to be honest, I completely agree with you. I don't, but like, what do we consider top tier of women? Like, is it just
Yeah.
look? And I think that's the thing is like when you're going on these dating apps, yes, you're not going to have the supermodel tens because they don't need to be on that.
Mm.
But you can find the girls that maybe just haven't, they're attractive sevens, eights, sometimes some nines, but you're finding the girls that are more down to earth and they're just trying to find a connection.
Okay.
So personally, like this has worked out, and I met my current girlfriend off of Hinge. I found that as long as you're able to get through the weeds in the right way, you can have
Mm.
some really, really amazing experiences with these women.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think I've got a sense of, like, I think I've been thinking a lot recently about challenge and like suffering as it relates to like a man's life, and I've come to the temporary conclusion that I think suffering is a really integral part of our life, like overcoming extreme suffering, extreme anxiety. And I think a lot of the times we find ourselves putting ourselves in these positions, right? Traumatizing ourselves on purpose. Traveling is maybe an example of that. It's like you're so comfortable and everything's so regular that you get this desperate urge to go and throw yourself into a third world country and just see if you survive. And it's almost like rebellion and challenge. It's like the need for something difficult to kick you up the arse, the need for that discipline, for that challenge, for that suffering. And sometimes I think the cold approach, one of the most addictive things about cold approach is the fact that it is overcoming one of our most primal fears, right? Go up and speak to that woman in the day, right? It's one of our most primal fears because obviously, historically, if she were with another alpha male who had higher value than us, we could be abandoned from the tribe or attacked, or there were real world repercussions in tribes of 100 to 150 people. Now they no longer exist, but we've inherited the biological fear as a result of how things used to be. But overcoming that fear gives you a real sense of aliveness and vivacity and energy and accomplishment and achievement and self-love. And when I've been on Tinder, I get the opposite. I get this feeling of just self-hatred and sort of narcissism, and the world moving in this sort of direction of slumber and laziness and comfort. And again, I don't think I'm necessarily right about this. It's just maybe some romantic notions in my mind. But what are your thoughts on that? And how can you maybe mitigate that sense of just taking the easy option, and ignoring your responsibilities as a man in favor of taking the easy option? How do you balance your lifestyle if you're going to be using online dating? How do you make sure that you're still challenging yourself in the right ways, let's say?
For sure. Got to keep it balanced. You got to keep it balanced. Just because you're using a dating app does not mean that you're not out there approaching. Now, personally,
Okay.
I like night game a lot more than just cold approach day game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like dating apps during the week and then on the weekends going out. And if you don't have that balance, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot because you're not developing any social skills whatsoever. You're just learning how to text and kind of have that process flow. But again,
Yeah.
these are all different avenues that you can follow on how to get that date, how to get that relationship. And you need to
Yeah.
make sure that you have them all mastered because otherwise, if you're a master at, I mean, essentially, if you become a master at just dating apps, you might as well just be a master of the catfish and you can get the date, but then you can't show up to the date because you're actually like a slob that can't even talk to anybody.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the future then, man. So, I guess you've got into this industry in this area as things are moving more tech focused. We see all this TikTok, Instagram, dating apps. Where do you see this going, right? Where do you see dating apps going? Or how do you think about the future of this industry? Um,
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So I work for a company. This is another side job that I do. A company called Gleam. That's GLEAM. I don't know
mhm.
where they're at in their roadmap right now, but the way that they have it set up is when you match with somebody, you have to get on a 5 minute, or it's like a 10 minute tops, but like something like that, video call with somebody.
Yeah,
So before you can even text them or move the interaction forward, you have to have a scheduled time based on the calendar that you preset to talk to them face to face.
it's a good
So
idea.
dude, it's awesome. I love the idea when I first heard about it. But I think that the way that it's going to go, it's going to move towards like much more towards this online space, especially with everything they were doing with lockdowns, how they keep shifting the goalposts on what you can and can't do. A lot of people have been locked up. A lot of people are in their developmental years locked up and having these rules. I think it really is going to shift to a very impersonal type of tech type of thing like this. So I don't know what the next innovation is going to be, but if you are not ready to go with dating apps, then you're going to start lagging behind. As unfortunate as that sounds, because I love the good old days of just, going out, cold approaching all the time. You still can, but it's just there's a different vibe with it all. Now you never know if you're going to run into somebody who's super like COVID scared or anti-vax or like whatever. Like there's so many weird opinions that have come up. So I really think it's going in this direction.
Hmm. Here in Brazil, the majority of people find their relationships on Instagram. So what happens is a friend, like a girl, will see a guy that's following her friend or has a picture with her friend, and she'll scroll through his profile, see that she likes him, talk to her friend, and see if he likes her too. And then the girl will sort of, and this is incredibly common over here, like incredibly common. And then the girl will sort of initiate some sort of contact between them, send them each other's profile. And people are almost like using Instagram as Tinder, where instead of swiping, they're just looking for mutual friends, friends of friends, and they're having this sort of relationship managed by the friend in common. Um, Given that that seems so popular over here, and with the rise of all the influencers, anyone with over 50,000 followers on Instagram, basically girls will come to them, is what I've seen in many cases. Do you think that Instagram is just going to become the global dating app, and these are sort of going to fall apart because no one needs them anymore? They can just find whoever they want on Instagram.
For now, yes, that's the trajectory that we're going in. Now, if that sticks forever, I don't know. But I've heard a lot of stories like that as well, and
Mm.
I've been able to leverage mine as well for dates and things like that. So it's interesting because they package it in a way that it's very digestible. Um, it's kind of like the Facebook 2.0, I guess you would say, and they have the Facebook dating and whatnot. I don't think it'll be too long until they have Instagram dating. That'll be interesting. Yeah, but I think
It
that's
seems
really
like it seems like Tinder sort of paved the way for that to be something appropriate. Like, if there were no Tinder, if there were no commercialization of dating, online dating, right? If there were no commercialization of online dating, the idea of looking at a profile and like direct messaging someone because you like their profile would be weird. But it's like Tinder was sort of the enabler, it seems like, for this idea that you can just select a partner off a portfolio of faces, you know?
yeah.
Um, it was like the precursor to that.
Yeah, no, that's the thing with Instagram, and that's why I love Hinge so much because Hinge it's focused. Okay, so like Instagram is just you showing your best light. Hinge is the same thing, except you have prompts, things like that you can show a little bit of flavor of your personality. Now, I think one of the things that Instagram can't become like an official dating app is because dating apps are dependent on location, and
Mm.
Instagram is so large, and so there's so many connections going across the world. Like you can find anybody, um, and so it's very difficult to like tone that down because like people that are hitting other people up on Instagram tend to be hitting up somebody that is not living in their area.
Yeah.
So they're like kind of shooting their shot. So I don't know how they would make that connection, but I think that those like Hinge, and there's probably going to be a next evolution of Hinge coming soon. But those like Hinge kind of give you that more focused experience where like I'm here to find a relationship. I'm here to get a date. Versus Instagram is kind of a one-stop shop for like interconnection and entertainment.
Hmm. Yeah, Instagram's sort of everything now, isn't it? It's like incorporated like every aspect of the social media idea.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it'll be
so
interesting. I want to ask your opinion on this though,
yeah,
because I
go
want to
on.
get into some of your experience on the cold approach and whatnot. And what do you think on this? Like, do you think it's going to take over? Do you think cold approach will die one day?
Um, I, I, I don't know the answer. I think a lot of the times in life, answers aren't obvious. Like, where we're going to be in 10 years is not fucking obvious. This is actually not obvious at all. So in, I basically believe that we are creating the future, and we're much more relevant to the creation of that future than we give ourselves credit for. Like, we really are creating the future right now. And so I think instead of trying to predict the future and jump on that wave, a lot of the time we make a vote for the future that we want to see, right? Now, the future in which we're going has components that I like, right? I like the idea of Web3. I like the idea of decentralized money, of power to the people, of making art like accessible to everyone and profitable. I like the idea that we could that we could go into a virtual world and we could have this meeting as avatars, 3D avatars in a virtual living room where we're both sat there, right? I like this kind of wacky future that I'm seeing signs of as, again, as sort of addition to real life. But I do not want to see a future where people are not living in the real world. I want to see the world exist in nature. Like I want to be in parks. I want to be in forests. I want to be in waterfalls. I want to see someone walk past me and say hello and see them smile at me and feel the heat of their body close to me. This is real life, right? This is something primal inside us that needs real human connection. And that's the future primarily that I want to vote for. And that's why I'm sort of like a dinosaur in many ways, where I'm like trying to like uphold this idea that meeting people in real life is so fucking fundamental, because without that skill you are just dehumanizing yourself, you know. And so I don't really have an opinion about what I think about the future. I think that this is going to go much more into web3. So I think that people are going to be having dates in a virtual restaurant where they have virtual avatars talking to one another, and literally everything is there but they're in VR, right? That's where I think it's going to go. But I don't want that for myself. And I don't want to live in a virtual world. I want to keep real life, human, face to face communication, spontaneity, surprise, embarrassment, shame, success, failure. I think that that is so integral to the human experience that I want to keep that alive.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I completely agree. The emotion needs to be there. The experience needs to be there. And when you start to do all these virtual types of things, it takes away a lot of those emotions and experiences you otherwise would have.
Yeah. Yeah, it can do. Again, you see, like it's not like I'm against any of it. I just think like it's so important that, you know, we don't, it's the same idea with us, like humans going to Mars. You know, it's like, fine, we can colonize Mars, but let's not destroy the Earth and then colonize Mars, right? Let's figure it all out together. Like, let's keep where we are from. Let's keep this alive. Let's keep human experience alive, even whilst we move into a new virtual world. Let's not burn the path behind us, you know.
Hmm.
And so that's, I think, really the important difference is like sometimes it seems like we're just plowing into the future without any care for where we've come from, or from where we are right now. And I think that we've got to keep all of that in mind simultaneously, you know. But yeah, and I think really the big thing for guys, whatever they're doing, however they want their dating life to be, or their social life, I think you have to travel. I think you have to be seeing new things, and breaking new boundaries and experiencing new cultures. And I think traveling is just the most, everyone talks about it and yet it's so overlooked. You still have people passing holidays in their own country and who could work abroad but just decide not to because their family's at home. And it's like, come on, man, this is literally it. Your life is happening right now and you're forgetting to experience it, you know. So I think traveling is just, and dating, like a cold approach when you're traveling is easy. It's easy if you go to like some small town in the east coast of Brazil where there's no foreigners, and you find yourself walking through there, and like you come into a bar and there's just some local people. They want to know who you are. You're in this weird floating through life headspace. You want to know them. Things happen, you know. A lot of guys that have just been cold approaching in big cities, Paris, London, New York, they don't know what it's actually like for things to be spontaneous, because they know that when they go out, they're just, oh, go out and do 10 approaches and then go home and do the same routine. If you find yourself in some back end of Thailand, you know, by yourself, traveling through, you know, that's where the spontaneity and the real feeling of like, wow, this is what it's all about. This is what it's like to be a human animal moving through the world and experiencing life. So I think traveling is still super important for guys to really learn how to interact with others, and with women especially. You've got to travel, or your experience is so narrow that you can't even understand their minds. You know, you can't really understand female psychology if you haven't experienced different cultures.
I completely agree with that. One thing that I do, like I have a mastermind group, and we travel every 6 months to a new
Mm-hmm.
location, and we come together from all across. It's mainly United States for right now. We're going to be doing our first one. We're going to do Carnival next year, so that'll be cool. But Yeah, it's awesome going to these different places, having everybody
Yeah,
experience it, and even just to experience it myself, because it is, even if you're not too far away from home, it's still different everywhere you are in the world, and being able
yeah,
to get that human experience is amazing.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I think the time that I do recommend my guys just to use like Tinder or something like that is you set your pin. If you get the gold version, you set your pin to a new country, and you can already have a little social circle before you arrive there. You know, if you set your pin up in one of those countries and you meet a few people on there more like speak English, you might have a tour guide for the first couple of days. So that can be pretty valuable as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm here for Rio Carnival this year, so I've got like already 5 or 6 guys coming over for that. Um, and running these 6-week courses over here in Brazil, just because like this is one of the most amazing places to travel to in the world during these months, and it's so easy to travel to other cities and other states in Brazil. You can literally just get in a taxi and drive to another state where things are completely different. So it's I really recommend South America as one of the destinations to travel to. What's your experience, man? Have you been in South America?
I have not, actually. I have not.
You must come, man.
Yeah, I know. I've been down in Mexico quite a few times, but no, I haven't gone
Mm,
down to South America. I know, and
cool.
we already have a plan for next year, but I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
need to experience more of it.
yeah, yeah. You've gotta come over, man. I'm gonna be here.
Dude,
Get you down to the beach.
Tusk says nothing but amazing things about it down there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm sure if he says it, you say it, everybody else tells me it. It's
yeah.
gonna be a wild time.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same with Southeast Asia though. I still haven't been there, and I have people telling me that Bali's amazing, and I just haven't done the Asia experience. I've just done Singapore, and yeah. Have you? What are the places that you would recommend then for guys that you've been? What are the best places that you would recommend?
Oh, that's tough. For like living, I don't. I mean, I'm thinking purely like U.S. right now, um, because like I've been to Italy, Spain, Greece. I
Mm,
haven't been to as many places as I really should have been.
mm,
But I mean, obviously, I got time, and I'm starting to really accelerate that travel right now, because I think it is important to get that immersion into different cultures.
yeah.
I find that in the U.S., just to give little tidbits there, I think that Austin, Texas, is a
Mm,
really good one. It's a really good hub for younger women. When you get not just younger women. I mean, like all women in general. It's a great place to meet people. Um, I would say that you want to avoid a lot of like the Northeast. Like I love Philly to death, but the weather is a very important factor on what goes on. So with it being
mm,
so cold right now, women like they don't go out. It's almost like it.
right.
I went to school in the middle of Pennsylvania, and it was freezing cold in the winters. And so once December 15th hit, you wouldn't see another girl until February 15th. It
Right.
was like a whole new level of cuffing season. They weren't just cuffing a guy for the holidays. They were just staying inside because it was
Mm,
that cold. So I would avoid that. I think that Miami was fun, but Miami again, you get a lot of superficial, and it's like, do you have the finesse to deal with it, or is it just a headache? So these are all things to consider, but I would probably think the best suggestions are some of those more southern states that are warmer more often. So definitely Austin, Texas is a good one. Miami can be a good one. Fort Lauderdale can be a good one. Um,
mm,
so just kind of consider that with your moves.
yeah. I mean, for me, I would hit up Rio for sure. Rio for sure, because you're just going to find other guys who are like-minded. Anyone that has the desire to come to somewhere as dangerous as Rio, you're just gonna find other psychos here, and it's the best thing, you know. Like you just find yourself living with these just crazy mix of just like interesting, fun, like light-hearted, risky like guys who like taking risks and like doing interesting things. And that's what I generally find. If the place that you go is a reflection of the people that you find there very often. So if someone goes to somewhere like Thailand, which is often very safe, most parts are very safe for people. It's exotic, but it's very, very safe. You're going to meet that type of person more often, like maybe more like peaceful, like hippie type. If you come to Rio, you're generally going to meet more like these guys that didn't like the safety of Thailand and wanted something a bit more wild. And so, but the great thing about Brazil really is that it's so huge that you can travel from one state to another, and it could be like 8 or 9 hours travel, and it's a completely different culture within the same country. Their the skin color is different, their culture is different, they speak different. The whole thing is completely different, and that's all within the same country. You just can jump on a domestic flight, jump on a bus, and you can see. It feels like you're seeing a whole continent, not just a country. And obviously, if you find yourself in the sort of some small town in some random part of Brazil, the people are going to be really interested in you if if you're not from there. So yeah, Brazil is a great place to travel to, and Colombia is beautiful as well.
I can't wait to get down there. You guys
Yeah,
have been teasing me. Every time I talk to you guys are teasing me.
yeah, tempting. Just the more temptation each time.
Oh, it's good stuff. Well, hey, we've been going for a little while now.
Yeah,
I want to talk a little bit more about the book, and we can close out and do this again sometime
for
because
sure, man.
this is great conversation. We hit a lot of different topics.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's just good information for everybody
So
overall.
yeah, so why don't you tell my audience? I think your audience probably already knows something about it, but why don't you explain to my audience exactly what they can expect from your short, concise, valuable book?
Absolutely. So in this book, the first text, it is focusing on that first text that you send when you match with somebody on a dating app. Now, I find that a lot of the difficulty that guys have is they'll match with a girl and then they don't know what to say next. And they will wait around and then they'll finally send something and then they don't get a response. And so this essentially breaks down how do you look at a profile and how do you send that first text? Like there's a lot of different ways to do so. I break down 5 different categories of how to do it. And you pick what works for you and you just kind of play around with it. And you'll see in time, again, it's like being out in the field. So you play around with the different approaches, you see what works, and then you keep going with it. Now, later down the line, we're going to have more intensive topics on conversation, like how to get that conversation forward, the FaceTime, the date, things like that. But this is how to get you started. So if you find yourself matching with girls and it's not going anywhere, this is how you can spark that conversation. For example, one of the things that I have in there, one of the styles is a trigger. And so you can find something on her profile to say, make a comment about that will trigger a response. And I think that that's, again, it's a very simple way to start a conversation. And it takes the thought process out of the whole thing. And I think that that's just extremely helpful for guys. And so I put that in. I break it down with examples too. I put screenshots of some of the conversations I've had. I break down why this specific interaction works. But again, this is just very concise on openers, and we'll dive deeper in the future. But we got to start somewhere. And if you're
Yeah,
having trouble with this, this is the perfect book for you.
super valuable, man. I agree. Like I think that actually knowing something about just sometimes like everything's okay, but we just need that idea. We just need that first thing to get us started. So yeah, I can completely see the value in like knowing just what to do so that at least that skeleton sorted, right? That first step is to push you forward is sorted, and then you can improvise from there, and it all starts to make a bit more sense, and it gives you a good platform. So yeah, very cool. And yeah, from my end, I'm going to be in Brazil until April. As I said, I'm coaching out here. I've got my clients coming on the 9th of February. There's 2 spaces left on my 6-week course and 2 spaces left on the Carnival Bootcamp that I'm running alongside Mr. Tusk. So I put the link to the call with me in the description of my YouTube and Facebook. And me and this man here, me and the Hudsman, are going to be thinking about doing a collaboration in the future that talks about basically where we go into some details about what we've discussed, the balance of having a successful online image, online branding, online profile, whilst being able to be an active and fluid, roll credits, communicator in real life. So yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, man, and I'm looking forward to the follow up. We'll do another collaboration on here, and yeah, I mean, hopefully within the next year or two, man, we put together a product that has some sort of, we're just in the infancy of thinking about this, but combines both areas to make sure that people actually balance this out properly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you so much for doing this with me. This was a great conversation, as you said. And I'm really excited to see the additional value we can bring to everybody in the future.
For sure, man. It was a pleasure, dude. Thanks a lot.
And hey, everybody, don't forget to support him with his link down below if you want to buy the book so that he gets a little bit of compensation for his time.
Pay me to pay you. Love it. Love it. Everyone wins.
All right. Thanks,
Right.
everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.